So satire plays a really important role in conscientizing society about the political landscape and some of the decision-making processes in the country. Apart from providing a medium for exploring key debates, it also provides provocative illustrations and interpretations of events, people and social issues framed by ideology, morals and agendas. Well, we're still in conversation with our friend of the anchor and political analyst this morning, Sinet Solomon, in studio with me. And then we're joined as well by Jonathan Shapiro, a cartoonist who has made it his mission to get South Africans talking about the key issues related to politics and governance. Now, he's been observing the election results and he shares his thoughts about how South Africans used their votes. He's better known as Zapiro. Jonathan, a good morning to you and welcome to Channel 405.
Hi, good morning. Nice to be with you.
Good to be with you. You know, you might be, obviously when people hear your name, they know it's going to be a very provocative discussion, and you certainly are able to spark conversations in South Africa. Talk to me about watching these elections, the two biggest themes that popped out for you.
Two biggest things, easy. First of all, the decimation of the ANC, and secondly, the rise of MK. Yeah. I mean, those are the two biggest things. Then there's a whole lot of other stuff, but those things just dwarf everything else.
And is this what we're looking at here when we see this depiction of President Jacob Zuma? We see the umbrella, not the umbrella, the shower head. Explain this one that we're looking at. It's almost a mountain of President Jacob Zuma, former president, with that umbrella over his head and a spear coming out of a crowd at the bottom of that mountain.
Well, I hope that you can actually see that spear is in a phallic position, because the spear, it says the picture emerges. The little bit that's at the top is what I keep seeing as a viewer, what all of us viewers keep seeing when we come back to see what's on TV, what's being shown. And the picture that emerges is an actual it's in a frame, and it refers to the spear, the Brett Murray painting from some years back.
Oh, yes.
That was a phallic issue that caused a lot of controversy. And essentially, you've got this spear rising in KZN and moving across to other places as well. So I did the kind of Zuma as his body, his whole being is this giant kind of malevolent, kind of brooding figure, which is almost like the hills of KZN. Yeah. And then the spear rises up in phallic position, and all the people, a lot of them with kind of tribal dress or Zulu dress or whatever it is, that sort of Zulu nationalism, that populism. Sometimes I find it very, very scary, this anti-constitutional, really quite a brutal anti-constitutional figure who was once our president and did a terrible job, and they started up again. Yeah.
There's another one where you've done there with the rule of law and Lady Liberty, I suppose, on that little podium, and the former president is in water saying, "I can't stand."
Yeah, well, that was a bit earlier, because Zuma is one of those characters who I draw him in a desperate situation, and the next minute I'm drawing him in a triumphant situation. He's like that every single week, every month, every year. It just keeps going. You think he's gone. So at the time when the IEC ruled again, and even after it went to the electoral court, and the electoral court ruled differently, then the constitutional court came back, and that's why Lady Justice, basically as the rule of law, saying that Zuma could not stand for president again. He had a criminal conviction. He couldn't even be a member. He couldn't even be a member of parliament again. And that was where it's all the kind of water coming out of his own shower. I mean, it's his own doing that he couldn't stand. But then, of course, he came back from that. Now he doesn't need to stand. He's just rallied this very broken party into something that's incredibly strong. It's the highest sort of new party, highest performing new party that we've seen since in 1994. All the parties were essentially new. Yeah. But since then, he's the highest new party in our elections.
Well, let's bring this one up, because and this is actually one of the older ones, and then we'll go back to some of the more recent ones that you've done. But I really wanted to go back to this particular piece of artwork that you did in 2021. This is following the local government elections. And essentially we were seeing very similar sort of pictures to what we're seeing right now, where political leaders are then going to be, you know, talking, back scratching and talking about, you know, who gets what, right? We're going to bring that onto the screen, and it's essentially, it reads the hung councils, and it's got the political parties hanging off a line, and they're asking, the question is, what can you do for us? And, you know, you can talk to us about this one, Zapiro, because the lessons that we should have learned from this piece in November 2021.
Yeah, so, you know, that you can see that they kind of represent different parties, party A, party B, and then the dialogue is what does it. The question is, what can you do for us? And from down below, one of the people in this absolute mess, and the local government elections are all about this kind of delivery of these kind of services. There's actually, that's not the question.
Yeah.
I mean, the question is, what can you do for us, the people? What can all of you politicians do for us, the people? So that was what was that one was about. I wonder if you can bring up the one, the coalition country one.
Yeah, let's bring that one up for you. Coalition country is, I think that's one of the latest ones that you've done, right? That's actually 2021. Yes, this is also from 2021.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'll read that one out. So once it's if it's up on screen, which I don't know yet, but if it's up,
we'll put it up. You tell us about it. It says, once mortal enemies. Yeah, you go ahead.
Can I read that? Because this is how it's meant to be read. I've written it in this sort of style, a kind of movie style. It says, once mortal enemies, now forced to work together, the good, the bad, the odd criminal. The citizens have had enough. Out there, the former sheriff plans his next attack. Coalition country. Cracks showing at a political theater near you. And when you look on that hill, there is Zuma rallying his forces in exactly the way that this has actually happened. I mean, in a sense, look, I didn't have to be prescient. I didn't really have to be. It was pretty obvious that Zuma would mount some sort of attack, but the attack really came now. The attack Zuma has mounted attack after attack, but the biggest one has actually come now, like 3 years later, or whatever it is, 2.5 years afterwards. And this is what we're seeing is that kind of those forces on that hill, and that hill is KwaZulu-Natal, and then spreading Mpumalanga and Gauteng, and then across the country. That's the attack.
I mean, it's powerful here. Sinette, do you want to say something? I mean, we watch, and sometimes we look forward to seeing these cartoons, and perhaps they're tongue in cheek, and they give us a little bit of a giggle, but they do say something about where we are as a country.
It really does. I think one of the exciting things about seeing Zapiro is how he would take the nuances of what we face as a country and actually put it in a way that we could both reflect on what's happening but also have a laugh. So I think one of my things that I'm most looking forward to is seeing which one is going to come up next, especially given that we're going to be having all of these discussions in the next 2 weeks. So it will be interesting to see how he depicts all of these nuances and what will be happening.
Yeah, one that Zapiro has just done on the 9th of May this year is on the Constitution is seen running and burning from the top of its head, and you've got political parties behind it where they're screaming, Old Testament in schools, we want aliens out, bring back hanging, down with gays and judges, up with kings and chiefs, a Zim-style land grabs, Cape exit. I mean, and we're going to bring that up on the screen as well. But this, for me, Sinette, is very telling as well as we get into these coalition talks, because the Constitution seemingly takes center stage, where political parties are, and the expectation is, will they form these partnerships and these alliances based on whether or not they put the Constitution at the center of, the country, really?
That's actually quite true. I think one of the more fascinating things with regards to this is that these different political parties also have different stances in terms of the Constitution. And if you look at that cartoon, I think it's an accurate depiction of what we're seeing. I think that we would be seeing a lot of changes, obviously, but I think it also sparks interesting discussions in terms of electoral reform, whether we'll be having electoral reform or not, given how we we have now the inclusion of independent candidates, but none of them actually did well. So that's obviously something that they'll be looking at. It would be interesting to see what would happen in terms of the negotiations, how they would be dealing with these competing interests. We have some political parties, obviously anti-LGBT, where you have others being more in favor of that. You have some wanting the upholdment of the Constitution because it actually protects the country, whereas others actually want to move towards parliamentary sovereignty. And it also raises a question, as a country, do we trust political parties enough for us to not have a constitution? And how is it that we defend our constitution so that all of us is taken care of?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important discussion. And then we'll be watching, of course, what political parties do. Jonathan, before I let you go, I mean, final thoughts, your message to our political leaders as they start these all-important negotiations to form a brand new government.
My message, I would love to see. I would love to see the best coalition. Then nothing's really going to satisfy me as someone who feels like the people that I voted for are not even there. Well, they're there to a small extent. You talked about some of the small parties. I mean, people like Rise Mzansi, Zaki Ahmed didn't even make it, but Rise Mzansi is somebody, a group that I do support. They're not going to feature in these coalition discussions. I hope that possibly the least imperfect coalition, which does not include people like MK at all, and I would prefer not the EFF either, the least imperfect coalition comes in. I mean, the one that people are saying maybe, I mean, this possible coalition of ANC and DA would be a strange one, and then holds us together till the next election where a sea change can happen. Yeah. That's what I would hope.
Yeah, satirist and cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, and you know him affectionately as Zapiro. Such a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for your time.